Hey guys, so I'm starting a new feature on the Harlequins YouTube channel, and that is for Scott and Luke to give us some insights into various different bits of Magic the Gathering, because they're both Magic players and they're both quite good. Both of them have played in multiple GP Day 2s, both of them played in multiple RPTQs, and Luke's played on Pro Tour Dublin, so that gives you a bit of their pedigree. The first thing we're going to ask them to do is give us a little bit of insight into Ixalan, Sealed and Draft. So we'll start with, who did we agree with? Scott first. Right, go on Scott, give us something.
So for the Sealed format, I really quite like the Sealed format. I feel like it's got a lot of balance all round. Your commons tend to be quite deep, and you never find yourself struggling for reasonable playables in the Sealed format. It also doesn't feel overly rare dependent like some have in the past. You can definitely have a playable 5 out of 10, 6 out of 10 deck at the very worst. The draft format I'm a little less sold on. I feel like packs can quite easily mellow out, and your 6 to 7 picks can sometimes be straight unplayable. It's a massive payoff for tribal synergies. Drafting the tribe does you a lot of favours, but I feel like you can certainly run out of playables very quickly.
Luke?
So I'm kind of the other way around on this. I quite strongly dislike the Sealed format.
I heard, yes.
Yeah, I'm not a fan at all. Unfortunately, it's a nice synergy-dependent set, which really doesn't lend itself well to Sealed deck Magic. Basically, the tribal synergies can't pay one another off because you don't have enough cards to support them effectively, unless you're particularly lucky with a pool. So a lot of the time, people's default deck is dinosaurs, because it's the one that doesn't need any synergy. Like, big creatures are just big creatures regardless. So a lot of the decks tend to come out as green decks, and I find it quite repetitive. There's a lot of creature combat and board stalls. It just doesn't really interest me very much, unfortunately. The draft format, however, is significantly better. Like, obviously, the tribal synergies that make Sealed a struggle are a lot more easy to accessible, that's what I was looking for. They're a lot more accessible in draft. You're able to pick up, like, the Merfolk payoffs, the Vampire payoffs, whatever it may be, and those decks become a lot better as a result of being able to draft around them. So yeah, I enjoy it a lot more. I think there is an issue, as Scott said, with the amount of players. Like, the cards in general can be a little bit weak, but I don't mind that so much. I think it forces you to draft well and to make sure you're in an open lane. I don't think it's a bad thing necessarily to reward people for drafting well.
Well, that leads us nicely on to the next bit, which is the bit that I've asked you both to do a bit of homework for, which is cards that are significantly better than they look at first glance for limited or for drafting, and cards that are significantly worse than you would imagine they would be when you first open them and go, oh my god, this card's amazing, then you play it and you're like, oh, actually, that's not great. I'm hoping that in the post-edit thing we get some graphics of the cards you put up, which will be amazing, but I can see that not happening. So, nice, clear depictions of the cards, please, guys, because if I can't get that to work, then it's just going to go up as it is. So, Luke, we'll start with you with something. What do you want to start with, better or worse?
Well, we'll start with better.
Okay, better first.
And I'm going to go for what I think is possibly the best common in the set, and that's Territorial Hammerskull.
I'll grab that from back here, because I can see that. So, yeah, so we've got Territorial Hammerskull, and you can read that out because I get shouted at when I do it.
Sure. It's 3 mana 2/3, dinosaur in white, and whenever it attacks, tap a creature and opponent controls. And as I say, I think this is possibly the most powerful common in the format, at least in draft. It's just incredibly efficient. It works as a removal spell. It's so hard to effectively block when your opponent has these on the board. Works in tandem with your own removal spells in order to just
first pick over some of the NAF rares, or
yeah, it's definitely first pickable. I'm not going to be upset for first pick this. I'm not going to be over the moon, but I'll definitely take it.
Cool.
You can be in any of the white decks and be happy playing it because it doesn't require any synergies.
It's 1 white, isn't it?
It's just a white.
1 white.
Just a white and 2.
We like that.
It plays well with dinosaurs, but it just plays well with everything, really. It's just a great aggressive card. It's just really hard to block effectively when you're playing against this, just because you know they can follow up with removal spells, so you're either holding everything back or...
So, first card on Luke's list to look out for, Territorial Hammerskull. Right, Scott, what have you got for us? Are you going better or worse?
We'll stay on the better wagon.
Okay, cool.
We'll stay on the dinosaur wagon while we're at it as well.
Cool.
So
we
my
like dinosaurs.
Pick is Raging Sawtooth.
Green red, and there we go. So we'll give you that back. Let you read it out.
So yeah, Raging Sawtooth is a 5/5 with trample for 5 mana, including 1 red and 1 green. When it enters the battlefield, it will do 1 damage to each other creature. In Luke's words just there, it is large. It's very, very large. Large and in charge, if you like. This is the kind of card that many people would frown upon me picking for this list, because the card is very obviously good. And it's not a card you want to first pick because of the gold nature of the card. You do want to take cards you're almost certainly going to play. I just think this card's a little bit underrated. The ability to trigger your own enraged triggers and the amount of X1s that are playable.
Oh yeah, because it deals 1 damage to
each
every
other creature.
so it'll trigger your own enraged.
Yeah.
Oh right, yeah. No, I hadn't spotted that. That's why you're there. That's why you're there, and I'm behind the camera.
Yeah. And there's a surprising amount of X1s in the aggressive decks, especially anyone who's drafted vampires, which I quite like as a tribal deck. I think it's very underrated as it is. And this card is just a beating against the aggressive decks that play a lot of X1s. This is very, very splashable if you happen to be in one of the colours already. And I've had really good experiences with it so far.
Cool,
So
awesome. So, Raging Sword Tooth, we'll get it right.
Teeth like swords.
Teeth like swords. Also very pretty artwork. I imagine that's really nice in foil as well. So I'll chuck that back there. Luke,
Cool.
what have you got for us next?
I guess we'll go worse.
Worse than it looks.
And I'm going to go with an answer for that card, and I'm going to go with Legion's Judgment.
That's Legion's Judgment. There we go. So this is worse than it looks because...
So yeah, it's 2 and white sorcery, destroy target creature with powerful overrated. And in most limited formats, this is a good card. In this draft format, I think most of the decks have a lot of creatures that hover just beneath that threshold.
Okay.
You just find it's inefficient. It's sorcery speed, so you can't respond to combat tricks or blow people out with it. And a lot of the things that, like the auras are quite good. Like, there's a lot of auras that give +2/+2 throughout the colours, like Mark of the Vampire.
Yeah.
But a lot of the time they're on cards like Jade Guardian, and you can't really deal with them anyway. Or they've already hit you and taken a bunch of life off you in the first place.
Yeah, being sorcery speed, I think, hurts that card quite a lot, doesn't it?
It hurts a lot. You can't respond to the combat tricks with it. Yeah. And as I say, like, it doesn't do very well against merfolk, vampires, pirates. It's just not all that effective, unfortunately. It's good against dinosaurs. I'd have it as a sideboard card, but not happy main deck.
Not as good as it looks for those people, especially for draft, basically, for this one. Yeah.
Obviously, as I say, I think in sealed you get a bit more in terms of dinosaurs, so I think you're more likely to play it, but in draft I would not start it.
Cool, not as good as it looks, Scott. Right, so we're moving on to Scott's pick for worse than it looks, which is...
The first pick is Kingjollies Caller.
Okay, I will reach around there and I will... Up that way, there we go, I will get it right. Kingjollies Caller, and why is this card worse than it looks?
So, this card is very much playable in the aggressive red-white dinosaur decks that want to be ahead of the curve and casting creatures early. I just think this pales in comparison to the other dinosaur reducers that you have access to in the form of the uncommon green and red ones. I think a lot of people give this a go as a result of their good experiences with those cards, and you quickly find that the 0/3 body either sits there and does nothing or is quickly outclassed. And sits on the battlefield and doesn't do an awful lot. And past turn 4 or 5, the mana reduction doesn't really count for an awful lot. It has no other abilities, like Drover does when it grows and becomes a 3/3, or the red one can give haste to dinosaurs, and therefore they have some late game applications. And this just sits on the board and gets very quickly outclassed. So.
Fair enough. So, yeah. So, Kingjollies Caller. Let's hope that... There we go.
I think it's, like, playable in the green-white dinosaurs deck because it's got the toughness enablers at the top end, so I can make it a 3/3. That's not bad, but I definitely wouldn't play it in the red-white version because I don't think having no power just makes it a waste of a card with that deck. I think.
Absolutely fair.
Cool enough. Right, Luke, what are we moving on to for you?
Right, let's go back to good cards.
Good cards.
And I think a lot of people will be expecting this, but it still needs saying Pirate's Cutlass.
All right, okay. I wasn't. There we go. So, being the affinity player, I wasn't expecting Pirate's Cutlass. So that's that.
I think this is the quintessential example of cards that don't look great at first glance, but are in fact fantastic in this format. It's just really efficient to be able to, like I said, there's a lot of creature combat because it's all creature tribal synergy, and this just means you win a lot of the time. Like, it's really, really good in the vampire deck, which wants to just give a lot of small creatures power boosts with like Anointed Deacon, things like that. So you give this to your token, you smash in, and they have to trade with it, or you're just draining them for 3 a turn, and they're not going to win that race. And obviously it's really good in the pirate decks. It's obviously got an additional tempo boost there. all the small creatures though, like this makes them big enough to either win combat or trade up. And in those sort of attritional creature-based games, this is just the best thing you can be doing. You, like in a lot of decks, you want as many of these as you can get.
I like the pirates. There's a lot of menace in this format.
Plenty of menace cards around. Like it does a lot of damage. And again, with Bold Souls, you stick it on a flyer and go to town as well. It's just that it gives a little toughness boost. It's really good with just a lot of cards. It just allows you to trade with dinosaurs on the defensive as well. The card's excellent.
All right, there we go. Well, that's Pirates Cutlass. So, Scott, what have you got for us on the good cards?
We'll say in a similar vein, we'll take a look at some of the auras that people might not think are very good in this format. I've picked out specifically Mark of the Vampire and One with the Wind.
Right. So 2 for 1. Let me just try and get this to work.
2 for 1.
2 for 1. No, that's an aura.
That's what we all want, I mean.
Yeah. So Mark of the Vampire.
They're going to get though.
Absolutely, this is
segue. One with the Wind at 2 mana, I can kind of get behind, but Mark of the Vampire?
Yeah, so as Luke just said, a lot of your opponents think they're going to get 2 for 1s in this format, but a lot of the removal is very, very expensive. And in a format that's this aggressively slanted, with a lot of raid triggers and a lot of menace creatures, you tend to find yourself racing against your opponent a lot. And these just win those races, especially Mark of the Vampire. Anyone who played Amonkhet remembers Cartouche of Ambition, at the very least, and knows exactly how good that card was in that format. It's very much the same. Both of these, even to an extent, something like Swashbuckling in red has been known to see some play. Ask Christian Calcano all about that. They're absolutely brilliant for winning those aggressive races that you find yourself in quite a lot. Evasion is as good as ever, and we're in a format with Jade Guardian in Merfolk, which means you can build your own Boggle, if you will, with something like One with the Wind. So
build your own Boggle.
Boggles is a legitimate draft archetype. It's scary but true.
He's not wrong, give it a go.
Not again.
So yeah, I know a lot of people are really scared to play auras because they're really worried about getting 2 for 1s. Just remember that this is very combat centric and the removal is very expensive. These auras are definitely worth playing.
Cool. So yep, 2 for 1. We'll put them back up for a second.
Consider sideboarding Mark against blue.
Yes.
Anything that might unsummon your guy?
Yeah, like the blue bounce effects in this format do a lot of the job for removal because it's fairly aggressive, fairly tempo based. They're the main way you can get punished playing those cards. But again, playing against most of the other colours, you're just going to get in a chunk of damage early on and win those races.
Cool. So Luke, we're back on bad cards.
Bad cards. I'm going to go with Pillar of Origins.
Pillar of Origins. It's another artifact. So one good one, one bad one.
Yeah.
So do you want to tell us what Pillar of Origins is about?
Sure. So Pillar of Origins, it looks like a 2-mana mana rock, and it looks like it provides mana fixing, and both those things are traditionally good in limited.
Yep.
It's not. It's just decent. Like it's just too slow. Your small creature decks don't want this. Like it doesn't provide mana fixing for any deck. Like your black white vampires deck doesn't need this. Your green blue merfolk deck doesn't need this. Your 3-color dinosaur deck, it has better options. Like there are just better ways of making your colours. There are better ways of ramping you up that aren't so ineffective at splashing anything else. Like you can't splash a removal spell off this. You can only splash things that are already in your colour of creatures.
Okay.
So
let's have another look at it and we'll put it up. Oh right, okay. Yeah. Oh god, I missed. There we go. I'm still not very good at this camera operating thing. Much better with Mark around. So basically, not mana fixing Pillar of Origins, basically.
It kind of is, but I mean, like, so there's like a Grixis Pirate decks you could play if you want, but the thing is, that deck already has Treasure.
Yeah.
And Treasure does the same job as this. It provides you your single-use mana for those splashes. And in all those other decks, everything other than Dinosaurs wants to be fairly aggressive, wants to be beating down early, wants to be getting a proper ball presence, and this doesn't do that.
Okay.
So yeah, it's a bad uncommon that looks like a good uncommon.
That is the epitome of what we were doing.
Yep.
Yeah, so put people off Pillar of that. Yeah, so Scott, we're on the bad cards.
Speaking of bad uncommons that some people look like good ones, we'll start with Wiley Goblin.
Oh, but it's called Wiley Goblin though. How can it be bad? I'm a bit loath to ask you now to tell me why Wiley Goblin is so bad.
I'm afraid if I didn't, you'd get mad at me.
I would, you're right.
So, as Luke just said, Treasure in this format is really good, and people look at this card and look at it as mana acceleration because you are casting a 2-drop that gives you a treasure and allows you to cast things ahead of the curve. The problem with this card is the 1/1 body is nearly irrelevant, if not totally irrelevant, and this card is double red to cast. Trying to cast this thing consistently on turn 2 is next to impossible. So it doesn't fill that role as a ramp spell that you want it to if you're playing an early creature. It's not really a creature, and if you want mana fixing and to create treasures, there is not literally hundreds, but many, many better ways of creating those treasures in the format. This card is a trap. It's not a creature. Please don't play it.
He is in fact a Wily Goblin.
He is in fact a Wiley Goblin.
So we're avoiding Wily Goblins, which actually is a good thing for life, really. Never really get involved with Wily Goblins. Yeah. Right, so we'll go back to some good ones and we'll brighten everything up. Can we find anything as good as the Pirate's Cutlass?
Not quite as good as a
Oh, right,
okay.
okay.
I
You're in love with that, aren't you? That's
really
your...
good. I went
I think you peaked early.
Yeah, I did. I started with the best cards here. I'm going with River Heralds Boon.
River Heralds... Oh, God. River Heralds Boon. So... I'll try and get this to focus in. There we go. So, combat trick.
Yeah, well, it's a combat trick, and it's just a big buff for a creature. Like, it kind of falls into the same place that we went with the auras that Scott mentioned, in that a lot of the time you just want to get extra power and toughness on your guys and get beaten down as quickly and efficiently as possible. This can pump either 1 or 2 creatures in a combat situation. This can just provide you a bunch of extra damage and a massive body early on, because they can both go on the same creature if it's a merfolk.
Yep.
You can just do a lot of work with a card like this that doesn't look particularly effective, but for similar reasons to the auras, that like you're not necessarily putting yourself at a huge amount of risk when you play a card like this in this format, and you get a lot of damage out of it. Like, there's the 1 mana 1/1 that gets +1/+1 if you have like you cast it for green and get +1/+1 if you've got an island.
Yeah, or a merfolk.
Or a merfolk.
Yeah.
So that card basically, it's a 1 mana 2/2. You put this on it on turn 2. You've got a 4/4 attacking on turn 2.
Yeah, which is always good.
It's ridiculous early on. It's very hard to interact with.
Yeah.
And I say you can play it at instant speed, so you can blow out a combat and then continue to beat down with it. This card doesn't look particularly powerful, but in fulfilling those 2 roles, it really overperforms in that merfolk deck.
Cool. So, Scott, good things.
So we're staying very much the same vein and highlighting the other combat tricks available to other tribes. I highlighted specifically
How are you getting all the double ones? I feel as though...
Well, they're very similar effects. We wanted to highlight them.
Oh, right, okay.
It's because he cheated.
He cheated?
Yeah,
right,
cheated.
okay. Right, so go on, sorry, we've got...
So Vampire Zeal and Skullduggery are the 2 I really wanted to highlight, but Sure Strike certainly falls into this category as well. As we've mentioned so many times now, this format is aggressively slanted. You want to be beaten down. There are raid triggers, there's a lot of menace, and combat tricks allow you to do exactly that. Vampire Zeal is just perfect for the vampire deck. First Strike is very relevant, and you want your 1/1s to just be pushing damage or trading up. And Skullduggery, again, there's so many X1s in this format that allow you to tag an opponent's creature and kill it and pump your own guy and trade with another one. With all the removal being so expensive, combat tricks are definitely the way to go in this format, and I am a big fan of them all.
Keep going. No, keep going. It's fine.
Okay,
I'll get rid of the invader. We're getting...
Okay. I'm a big fan of specifically the cheap interaction, not something like Crash the Ramparts, which for 3 mana is just too expensive and takes your whole turn. Any of the cheap 1 to 2 mana combat tricks, I'm a really big fan of.
Yeah. Yep. Cool. Agreed. Yeah, it's hard to do. I like Skullduggery. I hadn't really seen Vampire's Zeal, but...
Plus, Super 4 mana is great. It's the going rate in a lot of current sets these days, and getting it in white rather than in green is just powerful.
Massive payoff.
Yeah, it is good to see something in white doing something that isn't just like exiling creatures for a change. So,
First strike.
First strike.
They do love giving them
Let's have some more vigilance on those things.
Little lifelink.
Vigilance is terrible for a combat trick.
Yeah, it is really bad. Again,
untap it.
That's there you go. Yeah, something just untap target creature. Don't bother drawing a card though. That's bad if you need to draw cards. And again, this is why I'm behind the camera and these guys are in front of it. Luke, what are we on? We're on bad cards and the last of your avoid at all costs.
I'm going with this guy.
As a result, he's now going to automatically hit.
Right. Okay. You're cheating now because this is a mythic. So
it is. It's still a bad.
Don't pick this card.
A lot of very, very powerful mythics are slam first picks. This one is not.
No.
This looks like a slam first pick. It looks like it's going to eat your opponent. Game over. Unfortunately, that is not necessarily the case.
8 mana?
It is 8 mana, yeah.
There's not many 8 mana playable.
Well,
actually, that's not true. I'm lying completely. That's.
In the dinosaur ramp deck, I'm more than happy to play 7 and 8 drops.
Yep.
I just don't think this is a particularly good one for the mana cost in comparison to what you expect it to be when you first go. Sweet mythic first pick slam. Yep. Yeah, it's It's got a lot of text on it.
It does have a lot of
Hopefully
text.
you can read it on the screen because I don't really want to read it all out.
Or look up the card name on Gatherer, because that would be good. Hopefully we'll get the
Gishath's son's avatar.
Yeah, Gishath's son's avatar. But yeah, so a lot of Mythics and a lot of people tend to, rares and Mythics, people tend to get to the back of the pack, see playable, playable Mythic rare creature and just be like, that'll do,
Yeah,
smack.
absolutely.
And pack one, pick one, that's set you into really awkward fixing to get it out.
It's all fixing, but it's not even just that. It's the fact that even in the deck that it's in, it's just not actually that good. So the thing with a deck that wants to play Gishath is a fairly defensive-minded, rampy dinosaur deck. And that in itself can be pretty good. Like, you've got a bunch of decent ramp options you can fix fairly easily in green, so it's not hard to ramp up to that kind of mana. The problem is that in a deck like that, in the format, you're mostly the defensive deck. Like, the rest of the decks in the format are fairly aggressive, so you're trying to hold up, you're trying to block, you're trying to create board stalls, and then overpower with your big cards late on. Unfortunately, that often leaves this, when you slam your giant 7-power haste guy, facing a wall of irrelevant creatures that it can't get through. You've tried to stop combat happening, so their combat tricks are still sat in hand. This dies pretty badly to Sure Strike, unfortunately. And yeah, it's not the payoff you're looking for, unfortunately. You can get much better options in those colours.
In uncommons, apparently.
Well, yeah.
Well, like previously mentioned.
Like, the Raging Sawtooth is good, but I mean, that's not even sort of the top end.
No.
It's like, there's the green, I forget what it's called, but it's like it's a 6 or a 7 drop that makes more dinosaurs for 6 mana.
Thundering Spineback.
Yeah.
See, this is why you're useful.
That's the only reason I'm here. I know card games. I know
Card
card
names.
names.
You're like Gatherer. It's fantastic.
Quick, Scott.
Scott, what is this card?
What is
I'm
this
just here to save time.
Steve's just having to pause every 2 minutes and look up on Gatherer what cards
Regardless,
are called.
a card like that can give you a massive mana sink, it can give you inevitability, it can take over the game, whereas this, whilst it's great on sort of an empty board or a near empty board, it's just not that likely to happen, and it's not the bomb you're hoping it to be when you take a card like this.
Cool.
It's playable, but it's not amazing, unfortunately.
Right, so not pack one, pick one. Scott, what have you got for us on the last of the...
Last but very definitely least.
Is it Mythic?
Fleet Cutthroat.
Oh no,
I'm staying on the common.
Oh,
now,
it's a
I got
common
this
one. Yeah, Scott didn't cheat this time.
How was that cheating?
I've cheated plenty.
Yeah, he's got doubles in. See, did I draft this when I was... I think I might have done. Yeah, I actually did. Yeah.
I highlight this because this is a mistake I made, and this is why I want to highlight this card, because I thought this was good pre-release weekend and my first couple of drafts. With the format looking so aggressive and you wanting to beat down, the idea of your opponent eating a 1/1 and you being able to play your 4-drop and use it as a removal spell and put a 3/3 body onto the board seems really good in theory.
Oh.
I'm sorry. But the truth of the matter is, it just very rarely happens. I find with this guy, you're trading down a lot. Your opponents are so scared of combat tricks in this format, especially good players. They will play around combat tricks they expect to see, that they're very rarely blocking with their big guys that you actually want to kill. They will try and trade up with their own small 1 to 2 mana creature with their combat tricks of their own or similar. And therefore you very rarely get the opportunity to trade with this. It ends up being a 4 mana 3/3 you have to play on curve to stay aggressive more often than you'd like. And for that reason, I don't think it's good enough. You'll certainly play it in some of the aggressive decks as a fine 22nd, 23rd card, but it's not quite as good as I definitely thought it was.
So,
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be a 4 mana 3/3 killer guy, and that situation does not come up that often.
So,
it's 4 mana 3/3. It's okay. It's pirate. But
I got excited to play Necrotal when I didn't get it.
yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it is not Necrotar. No, at all. So, right, well, with that, they're the good and the bad and everybody's opinions. Hopefully we're going to do some more of these videos, so hopefully you'll see some more of...
I'm definitely the bad.
I'm definitely ugly, so I'm behind the... That's why I'm behind the
makes
counter.
sense.
So hopefully Luke and Scott, we can get them together, because they're both from different stores. One plays in Blackpool, the other plays in Preston, so this is a bit tricky. So you might see them individually, you might not see them together too much. So, but hopefully we'll get to do some more videos with some more insight from these guys. We'll keep you up to date on how their Magic careers go, because they are still playing quite heavily into trying to get back onto that Pro Tour. So hopefully we'll see you all again soon. For the first time, or for the first, sorry.
Someday.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Take care, guys, and we'll see you all again soon.
Toodles.
I think we should